My mother was a kind and gentle parent, because she never punished her children. Instead, she tormented herself. When my brother scored 7 points short of a perfect score in his high school math exam, my mother knelt on the floor and slapped her own face. It's because mother isn't capable of teaching you well, mother will punish herself. My brother stayed up late every night doing practice problems to prevent her from harming herself. In the end, he died by suicide from depression at a young age. When it came time to fill out my college applications, I chose the prestigious university's program in cultural relics and archaeology instead of the free medical program she wanted me to apply for. When my mother found out, she went to the rooftop and jumped to her death. Mom can't bear to watch you choose a major where you'll never find a job. If you don't change your major, Mom will have no choice but to die, under her coercion. I switched to nursing, wasting half my life. When I opened my eyes again, my brother and I had both been reborn. Relatives and neighbors all said that my mother was willing to sacrifice everything for her children, a kind and selfless mother unlike any other in the world. When my brother was born, she gave up the opportunity to become a dean and shifted her focus to the family. When I was born, she resolutely decided to resign from her position as a primary school teacher and transitioned into being a full-time mother. She also sold the house in the small county town and, alone, brought my brother and me to the big city to pursue our education. The three of us had to squeeze into a cramped attic, with my mother making me and my brother share a bed while she slept on the floor. She said, "I have given you all my best, and you should be grateful." But my brother and I both disappointed our mother's hopes. On the day my brother graduated from a prestigious university, he fell into depression and took his own life. My mother was heartbroken and clung to the hands of relatives and friends, crying out her grief. I never hit him once or scolded him a single time since he was young. Why is this child's heart so fragile? Others comforted my mother, saying that my brother was always destined to have a short life, with shallow blessings, and wasn't worthy of such a good mother. My mother wiped away her tears, believing only half of what they said. She believed she had done nothing wrong. My brother died because he couldn't handle pressure. I don't believe my brother had shallow blessings. In her eyes, my brother had used up 8 lifetimes of luck to have her as a mother. With her working herself to the bone, my brother could excel academically, and should have had a smooth path to high office, at least becoming a provincial governor to justify it all. But my brother died, and my mother's hopes were completely shattered. She had no choice but to place her heavy expectations on me. She believed that my brother's psychological fragility had led to the tragedy, so she felt it was even more important to strengthen my mental resilience. If my grades didn't meet my mother's expectations, or if I went out to play with friends during the holidays, my mother would forcibly drag me to the school gate, wildly slapping her own face in front of everyone, even banging her head against the cars parked by the roadside. All eyes were on us, passers-by pointed at me, and the disdainful looks from my classmates felt sharper than knives. I knelt on the ground, crying and begging my mother to go home. Dignity had long since vanished in the countless kowtows. Only then did my mother seem satisfied, pulling me by the hand and speaking softly. "Your mother would never harm you, just trust her. Let's live a good life together, and let your brother regret it in the afterlife." I could only follow step by step along the path my mother had laid out for me. When she asked me to give up my desired major and choose a government-funded medical program, I complied. When she asked me to give up the chance to pursue a bachelor's degree and return home to become a nurse, I complied, because as soon as I showed the slightest resistance, my mother would threaten to take her own life. In the end, she found me a suitable match for an arranged marriage, urging me to settle down obediently. I refused, so my mother ran to the rooftop, threatening to take her own life to force me into marriage. "Luna, Mom is doing this for your own good. If you don't listen to me, I'll jump off this building right now." The voices below grew loud, urging my mother to calm down and urging me to obey. Did they say something similar on the day my brother died? Suddenly, I felt utterly exhausted. In the midst of the commotion, all I could see was my mother's mouth moving. I quickly walked over to her, embraced her in her startled gaze, and whispered softly in her ear, "Okay, Mom, let's die together." I guided her toward the edge of the rooftop. Seeing that I was serious, my mother let out a piercing scream, instinctively broke free from my embrace, and pushed me off the rooftop. A searing pain hit me, and I vomited large amounts of blood, yet I mustered all my strength to smile. Finally, I broke free from my mother's control. I also came to realize a truth: she had never intended to harm herself. All her theatrics of wanting to die were merely tactics to manipulate my brother and me. The sound of my mother's sobs echoed in my ears. I thought she had a change of heart. When I opened my eyes, I found her kneeling on the ground, tears falling in big drops onto the 143-point exam paper. My brother stood beside her, his expression cold, not at all like the memory I had of him and my mother crying together. It wasn't until my brother and I made eye contact, I finally confirmed that we had both been reborn. Mom hasn't been paying attention to your grades for just a few days. How could you have fallen so far behind? It's Mom's fault for not being able to teach you well. Mom will punish herself. After a few words, a loud slap rang out. This scene was all too familiar in my home. In the past, we would have all knelt down in unison to repent, promising never to make her angry again. But now, my brother watched coldly from the sidelines, and I returned to the dining table to quietly eat my meal. After slapping for a while, my mother's strength gradually waned. She peeked at us through her fingers, realizing that we were no longer as obedient as before, and immediately felt a sense of difficulty. At this moment, my brother spoke softly. "Mom, don't slack off, keep fanning." This remark could be considered downright disrespectful. When my mother heard this, her face turned darker than a pot bottom, her hand raised, not knowing whether to put it down or not. To maintain her image, she couldn't bring herself to scold my brother, so she opened the front door wide, allowing the neighbors to hear the loud wails. Then she sat on the steps, slapping her own face and cursing herself for being useless, the force much heavier than before. This residential building was constructed over 30 years ago, and its soundproofing is extremely poor. The slightest noise from any household can spread throughout the entire building within seconds. Now, it was dinner time again, and all the neighbors were at home. Hearing the commotion, they all dropped their bowls to watch the spectacle. "It's all my fault for not being capable enough to keep your father's heart, allowing him to run off with that seductress, leaving you as children from a single-parent family. I also lack the ability to take good care of you siblings, causing your grades to plummet, making it likely that you won't get into a good university or find a good job in the future. I'm useless, I might as well just die." My mother's cheeks were swollen and bloodshot, with clear finger marks visible, making her look particularly pitiful, combined with her hoarse and desperate accusations. Many of the neighbors immediately felt sympathy for my mother. "Sister, we know you've had a hard life. There's no need to punish yourself over such a small matter." "Yes, who doesn't know that you clean the house during the day and still have to tutor 2 kids at night? There aren't many mothers like you." The neighbors helped my mother up, then turned to scold my brother. "Can't you think more about your mom? Was it easy for her to raise you and Luna, wiping your bottoms and feeding you? Charles, look how good your mom is to you. Even when she's angry, she won't hit or scold you. Quickly apologize to your mom and be good to her in the future." Her neighbor's words struck a chord with my mother. She stood hidden among the crowd, tears streaming down her face, unburdened by any guilt as she let them speak for her. My brother crossed his arms, his tone cold and cutting. "Anyone who thinks my mother is so great can take her home and treat her like their own mother. After all, no one ever complains about having too many good mothers." The crowd erupted in a cacophony of noise, spitting and cursing my brother as a heartless ingrate. My mother froze for a moment, her gaze meeting my brother's cold eyes, and she instinctively shuddered. She quickly pulled out her trump card, rushing to the window and leaning halfway out, crying and shouting, "My son doesn't acknowledge me anymore. I don't want to live." Not only did the neighbors of our building try to stop it, but even those from other apartment buildings came out to watch the spectacle. In their words, my brother became an irredeemable criminal, just as bad as my father, who was notorious for his infidelities, and they said that poor genes indeed pass from generation to generation. My mother's voice was hoarse from screaming, her cries carried far, far away with the wind. The neighbors didn't dare to act rashly, fearing that my mother might really jump and either die or get seriously injured. The neighbor auntie nudged my brother and urged, "What are you standing there like an idiot for? Quickly say something nice to persuade your mom to come down. Don't you think about how hard she's had it?" This time, my brother listened. He walked straight up to my mother, unafraid of any extreme actions she might take, because we both knew very well that the person my mother loved the most was herself. My brother leaned down and whispered into my mother's ear. The wind was fierce and strong, scattering his words into fragments, but everyone present saw my mother's face turn bright red. She raised her arm and slapped my brother hard across the face. "It's about time," whispered the uncle next to me. "He's been spoiled to the point of no return. Luna, you mustn't be as heartless as your brother." The neighbor aunt lamented. They had already decided that my brother was a bad seed, so they weren't surprised by what happened next. After all, if someone nearly drove their own mother to death, it wouldn't be surprising for them to run away from home. Yes, my brother left. he completed his withdrawal from school, disregarding his repeated pleas for him to stay, and left resolutely. My mother had bought him clothes, a senior-friendly phone for daily communication, and the New Year's money he had saved over the years. My brother had neatly stacked them all on the bed. He only took 2 school uniforms for changing and his ID card. Even so, my mother was still not satisfied. She flung open the front door of the house, allowing the neighbors to peek in at will, as if she wanted the whole world to know how much she had been wronged. After comforting my mother, the neighbors turned to lecture me. "Look at how despicable your brother is. Did he really have to run away just because you yelled at him a few times? It's better this way. Just consider him dead and focus on being a good son to your mother from now on." I nodded, hiding the coldness in my eyes. In truth, my brother had planned to take me with him. I don't want to. First, I'm only 14 years old, and I haven't even finished 9 years of compulsory education. Running away with my brother would only hold him back. Second, if we leave, my mother will immediately turn into a sad woman, endlessly portraying us as ungrateful to outsiders. By then, she'll gain everyone's respect and pity, while my brother and I will become the proverbial rats running through the streets, chased by all. Third, I don't want my mother to live out her life comfortably. That wouldn't be fair. My mother doesn't understand my thoughts. After all the relatives and friends had left, she looked at me in silence and annoyance, as if staring at a defective product. "Your brother is gone, and from now on, it'll just be the 2 of us relying on each other. You must listen to your mother. If I tell you to go west, you can't go east. Do you hear me?" "I heard you, Mom." Only then did my mother seem satisfied, humming a tune as she went to the bathroom to wash the clothes. All the clothes had to be washed by hand 3 times before they could be hung on the clothesline. 2 rinses with clean water and 1 with detergent, she said, to ensure they were truly clean. My mother also said she was willing to give everything for me. As long as I behaved and listened to her, I will certainly be obedient. Otherwise, how could I drag you into hell, Mom? For a month before the midterm exam results came out, we indeed played the role of a loving mother and obedient daughter for a long time. My mother took care of everything herself, with clothes laid out on the bed every day in advance, even remembering to match the colors of the socks every day. Breakfast requires getting up at 4 in the morning to make dough, then heading to the market to buy the freshest meat. Instead of using the free meat grinder, she insists on chopping the filling by hand with the back of a knife. The neighbors praise my mother for her meticulousness. My mother smiles wryly. Who else would treat Luna well if not me? She's my only child now. Others believed it, and she believed it herself. It wasn't until the midterm results came out that I was ranked 3rd from the bottom in the class. The homeroom teacher said, "Luna is a smart little girl, but she doesn't pay attention in class and often engages in activities unrelated to studying. Parents need to correct her attitude towards learning, or else she won't get into a good high school, and her life will be ruined." My mother thanked the homeroom teacher with a dark expression on her face. She didn't hit me or scold me. Instead, she dragged me out of the school gate, sat down without a word, and began furiously slapping her own face. "Mom wasn't able to teach you properly, which is why you've turned into such a lazy, unmotivated mess. It's all because Mom isn't capable enough to create a good learning environment for you. Mom absolutely cannot stand by and watch you ruin yourself. You only got 39 points in math, which is 61 points short of a perfect score, so Mom will slap herself 61 times. This is the peak time for school dismissal." Students with backpacks leaving the school gates, and parents picking up their children, all came to a standstill, staring in astonishment at my mother's self-harm. Security guards and duty teachers ran over, grabbing both her arms, trying their best to persuade her to get up, but my mother ignored them completely. She wouldn't let her slap her face, so she banged her head forcefully instead. Her forehead slammed hard against the concrete floor, kicking up a cloud of dust, once, twice, 3 times. I silently counted the number of times my mother knocked her head, all the while pretending to be stunned, standing helplessly by, doing nothing but crying. Without my intervention, my mother naturally wouldn't stop. She was dizzy from the knocking, probably resenting me for being so clueless, not knowing to put an end to this farce. Only after counting to 60 did I suddenly kneel down, opening my throat to cry, my wails even louder than my mother's shouts. "Mom, I was wrong. I won't be so mischievous anymore. I'll study hard from now on." The onlooking parents also tried to persuade my mother. "It's a good thing that the child knows to correct her mistakes. Don't scare her. Children will have their own fortunes. Can you control them for a lifetime?" My mother didn't speak, biting her lips tightly, her face turning pale in waves. I guess it was because she had hit her head too hard and too many times, and it had left her mind a bit muddled. Just as I was about to help her up, she swatted my hand away, glared at me angrily, and rode off on her electric scooter. Yes, my mother didn't hit me or scold me, the harshest thing she did was make me walk home by myself. The school was 10 kilometers from home, and it took 2 hours to walk there. As my mother's figure disappeared over the horizon, the onlooking parents began to discuss loudly. Some sighed about the plight of parents everywhere, while others thought my mother had gone too far. But in any case, it was someone else's family matter, and they couldn't meddle too much. I wiped away my tears and only walked into the bus station after I was out of sight. In the past, I would have punished myself, forcing myself to walk the 10 kilometers just to feel better, but not this time, including the time waiting for the bus and commuting. It only took half an hour to get home. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I went to the snack street downstairs and ordered a handheld pancake. Dawdling until 8 in the evening before stepping through the door, my mother was lying on the floor, her face turned toward the wall, neither speaking to me nor acknowledging my presence. There was no food in the pot, and the stove was cold, her usual method of punishing the entire family. Fortunately, the handheld pancake I had just eaten did its job. I pretended to wail a couple of times, then climbed into bed with a clear conscience and went to sleep. My mother couldn't sit still any longer. She had been bustling around all afternoon, and with no dinner to fill her stomach, she was already starving. She had been waiting for me to come home and complain about being hungry, so she could scold me properly and then cook a meal to satisfy her appetite. To her surprise, I didn't play along. I actually dared to let her go to bed hungry. My mother grew angrier with each passing thought, her stomach rumbling loudly in the quiet of the night. Finally, she got up from the floor and rushed to the kitchen to make herself a bowl of noodles, just one bowl. She didn't even dare turn on the light, finishing her meal quietly while leaning against the stove. I turned my back to the moonlight, opened my eyes, and watched the flickering shadows on the wall. The next morning, as if nothing had happened, I meekly invited my mother to eat. She remained lying on the ground, pretending not to hear me. I casually washed the dishes in the sink and casually took a 10 yuan bill from my mother's wallet. He said respectfully, "Mom, I'm going to school." Silence was the expected response, but I knew my mother wouldn't let me off easily. Sure enough, that evening when I got home, my mother had me kneel down without a word. I refused to kneel, so she threw open the door and loudly accused me of stealing money. She also said, if a daughter is not properly taught, it is the mother's fault, and that everything was her responsibility. The neighbors swarmed like flies drawn to the scent, surrounding our house completely. My mother sat on the ground, wailing loudly, "Why is my fate so bitter? I endured countless hardships to raise 2 children, only to find that one is a heartless wretch and the other a thief." The neighbors immediately cast disdainful and contemptuous glances in my direction. I am far too sensitive to such looks. With a bend of my knees, I knelt down and began to kowtow with loud thuds. "Mom, I was wrong. I will never let greed cloud my judgment again. You save money so much that you don't even dare to add a fried egg to your noodles. How long would it take you to earn back these 10 yuan? Yet I had the audacity to take this money to ride the bus. I am guilty." The neighbors had initially been quite critical of me, but when they heard that I had only taken 10 yuan to ride the bus, they suddenly felt that my mother had tricked them. Ahem, Sister Luna's mom, it's true that Luna stealing money is wrong, but she only took 10 yuan. There's no need to be so angry with her. Even at 14, you should give him some pocket money. Otherwise, if he gets tricked by some punk, you won't even have time to cry. The neighbors' betrayal made my mother especially furious. She shouted loudly, "Is 10 yuan not money? Stealing is stealing. Don't make excuses for Luna. If you dare to steal 10 yuan today, you'll dare to steal 50 tomorrow, and 100 the day after. By then, if you corrupt my daughter, who will take responsibility?" My mother spoke passionately, spitting and gesturing wildly. The neighbors' expressions were not very pleasant, and none of them stood up for my mother as they had before going back into her house. The neighbor aunt couldn't help but mutter under her breath, "Crazy, I've never seen such an unreasonable person." No wonder Charles ran away. My mother didn't hear me and remained standing in place, hysterically accusing the neighbors and telling them to mind their own business. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. "Mom, haven't you realized your image has already collapsed? It's okay, your fortune is yet to come." My mother hid all the cash in the house and wouldn't let me touch a single cent. At the same time, she stopped cooking for me. Every time I came home from school, the fridge was empty, not even a grain of rice or a drop of oil was left. she wanted to force me to comply, and I knew it well. I simply knocked on my neighbor's door and shamelessly asked for a meal. I had eaten at every neighbor's place in the entire apartment building. At first, it was fine, and no one minded adding an extra pair of chopsticks, but as I visited day after day, the neighbors, though they didn't say it aloud, began to resent my mother in their hearts. In the end, they could bear it no longer. After I had eaten my fill, they took me with them to knock on my own door. My mother, flustered, hid the rice bowl hastily and glared coldly at the neighbors who had barged in. The neighbor said, "Mother of Luna, don't you feed your child normally? She's growing up, and it's not right for her to eat at our place every day." Her cheeks flushed crimson, she glared at me and couldn't help but hiss through clenched teeth, "Greedy little glutton, come here right now." I hesitated, staying put and hiding behind the neighbor aunt, crying out, "Mom, I was wrong. I won't go to other people's houses to beg for food anymore. Please don't hit me, I'm hungry. When have I ever hit you? Is other people's pig slop really that delicious?" My mother's eyebrows shot up, clearly furious with me. Hey, what do you mean by that, Mrs. You?" the neighbor retorted, but my mother merely gave them a cold glance, forcefully dragged me back into the house, and then slammed the door shut with a loud bang. The neighbors left in frustration, cursing outside the door that my mother had no shame. My mother was in a fluster and raised her hand to slap me. I was quick-witted and ducked into a corner, avoiding the blow. My mother didn't continue to hit me but spoke coldly instead. "You don't deserve to eat the food I make. From now on, I'll give you a monthly allowance, and you can buy your own meals outside. Just eat until you drop dead." From that day on, my mother gave me 300 yuan a month for my living expenses, with all my clothing, food, housing, and transportation costs deducted from it. That amount of money was barely enough, but I managed to survive the first month with sheer willpower, like someone fighting for survival in the harshest of conditions. Later, my brother found a job and secretly contacted me, occasionally transferring me a few hundred yuan each month, which allowed me to ensure I could eat 3 meals a day. My mother showed no concern for this. We lived under the same roof like strangers, only seeing each other in the evenings, with no conversation or communication at other times. And so, time stumbled its way to the year I was in my second year of high school. My mother fell in love. She didn't have a job, nor did she waste her time taking care of us like she had in her previous life. When people are idle, trouble tends to find them. My mother fell for the new resident who had just moved in downstairs. The tenant was a divorced man in his 40s with a 10-year-old boy, who had moved here supposedly for the child's education. The man was clumsy and didn't know how to take good care of the child. He let the boy run around the hallway in dirty clothes, constantly knocking on neighbors' doors. The man then rushed over to apologize again and took the child home to discipline him. After several such incidents, my mother and the man began to exchange glances, and naturally, they started dating. My mother loved the man so much that she also grew very fond of the little boy. When the man went out to work during the day, she would cook for the boy, bathe him, and even buy him new clothes with her own money. By the time the man returned from work in the evening, my mother would have prepared hot meals and delivered them to his door. After they finished eating, she would take the dishes back to wash them. Others think my mother is hardworking, but she enjoys it. After realizing how happy my mother was, I made my move. I took leave from school and rushed back home, clutching the man's leg and weeping, "Uncle, please leave my mother. It wasn't easy for her to raise me and my brother, and she was finally about to enjoy her hard-earned peace when you showed up again. If you agree to break up with my mom, I am willing to serve you as an ox or a horse in my next life to repay you." The man looked flustered and called out my mother's name toward the kitchen. My mother came running into the living room with a spatula in hand, her anger boiling over at the sight of me. "Aren't you ashamed? Get up off the floor right now." I held on even tighter, gripping the man's knees with all my strength. "Mom, I'm doing this for your own good. I can't stand by and watch you become someone else's unpaid nanny. If you insist on marrying this man, I'll take him with me and we'll both die right now." The man was terrified, struggling to break free from my grasp. He picked up his son and turned to leave. "You two talk. I have some things to take care of at home." As the man's figure disappeared behind the door, my mother leaned weakly against the wall, as if her backbone had been suddenly removed. I reached out to support her, but she slapped my hand away. Smack! The sound was crisp and clear. A sharp pain shot through me as my mother confiscated the item. "Mom, how could you hit me? Everything I did was for you." I covered my face, tears welling up. "Get out, I'm not your mother." My mother raised the spatula beside her and swung it fiercely at me. Had I not dodged quickly, The sharp edge of the shovel would have struck my eye. My mother remained oblivious, picking up whatever was within reach and hurling it in my direction. Barefoot, I ran out of the house, pounding on my neighbor's door while sobbing, "Uncle, Auntie, help, my mom's going to kill me." The neighbor opened the door to let me in and even called the police for me. After all, it was a family dispute, and the police couldn't intervene much. They just lectured my mother a bit before leaving, but no matter what. No one believed in my mother's loving mother persona anymore. Which loving mother doesn't feed her daughter, who would beat their daughter just because of some random man? Recalling the old incident of my brother running away from home, the neighbors unconsciously leaned towards my side. "Uncle and Auntie, I'll be taking the college entrance exam next year, and now the study load is heavy, so I can't come home every day. If that man comes to seduce my mom again, please let me know immediately. I can't just watch this family fall apart." Tears streamed down my face. The neighbors took in my pitiful state and promised to keep an eye on my mother's situation and inform me if anything happened. I finally felt at ease returning to school. After this incident, my mother cut off my living expenses. She wished I would die at school as soon as possible, so she and that man could live together in bliss, but I refused to die. Besides the money my brother sent me every month, I also took on some part-time jobs to support myself. Life is tough, but at least we managed to survive. I heard that my mom and the man downstairs are still secretly seeing each other. This time, I brought a carton of milk to his door, politely telling him the story of my mom's affair. For instance, my brother and I are actually half-siblings. The reason my mother quit her job at the school wasn't to educate my brother and me, but because the wife of her lover caused a huge scene at the school, and my mother felt too ashamed to show her face there. For example, the man who was my nominal father also supposedly cheated, a rumor my mother spread. He had to give my mother 3,000 yuan every month for living expenses. Otherwise, how would she survive without working? As each word left his mouth, the man became increasingly restless. The little boy complained of hunger and demanded the upstairs aunt cook for him. The man bellowed, "Eat your damn food, don't you think it's dirty?" I knew it. This thing was done. After the man broke up with my mother, she stormed into the school and tried to hit me in front of the whole class. Only after being stopped by the homeroom teacher did she sob and accuse me of my viciousness. I only wanted to pursue happiness. What was I wrong about? "Luna, the thing I regret most is giving birth to you, this wretch. You not only ruined my life but also destroyed my love." Unpleasant past events were brought up one by one, like a sharp blade piercing a festering sore. It hurt fiercely, yet also brought a strange relief. In my mother's gaze that seemed ready to devour, I silently curled my lips into a smile. "Mom, no matter what, I am still your daughter. Even if you hate me, I will never give up on you. Don't worry, even if you cheat, manipulate me and my brother, cut back on our food, and want to bring in a new father for us, I will still take good care of you and ensure you have a peaceful old age." You're insane. I don't have a daughter like you." My mother instinctively took a few steps back. His expression shifted unpredictably, a mix of disgust and fear. "Look at her, this wretch is smiling. How can she smile like that?" She yanked the homeroom teacher over, wanting her to see my true face, but what the homeroom teacher saw was clearly my face hidden in tears. "Parent of Luna, no matter what conflicts you have at home, please do not bring them into the classroom. Luna will be taking the college entrance exam next year, an exam that can determine the course of her entire life. As parents, if you cannot create a good learning environment for your child, that is one thing, but you absolutely must not hinder her studies." My mother exploded in anger. Does she even deserve to go to university? Scoring 200 or 300 points is better off dead. The homeroom teacher wanted to say something more, but upon seeing my mother's wild expression, she silently closed her mouth. From that day on, my mother never allowed me to return home. She hated me for ruining her career, her family, her dreams, and even the only love she could hold on to, which I deliberately destroyed. She hated me, so she let me fend for myself, hoping I would live in poverty and obscurity all my life. But unfortunately, I once again disappointed her. The day the college entrance exam results were released, the entire school was in shock. Compared to other prestigious high schools, our school had slightly weaker students, and getting into a 985 university was considered a miracle worthy of the principal's ancestors ascending to heaven. But this year, someone actually reached the for Harvard and Yale University. That someone was me. The principal and homeroom teacher came to my house with report cards and bouquets to deliver the good news. The neighbors were all in an uproar, eager to share in the joy. Only my mother refused to believe it. "Can Luna, that stupid pig, really get into Harvard or Yale University, let her die somewhere else. The principal, feeling embarrassed, pulled out my transcript and showed it to her. As soon as my mother finished looking at the grades, her face turned red with anger. She raged. So what if she gets into Harvard or Yale University? Which student from those schools isn't rich and powerful? What right does Luna, a poor student from a small county, have to compete with them? Upon hearing this, the principal was stunned, and even the reporter holding the camera to document the scene was left speechless. Seeing this, I timidly stepped forward and carefully explained to my mother, "Mom, stop it, the reporters are live streaming right now." Upon hearing this, my mother became even more energized. She grabbed my hair and pulled me in front of the camera, her voice sharp, "You, a good-for-nothing who only scored 200 or 300 points, how could you possibly reach the Harvard and Yale University cutoff line? You must have cheated. I'm calling the police to have you arrested right now." "Mom, I didn't cheat," I cried out, adjusting the angle as much as possible to fully expose my mother's contorted face to the camera. This live broadcast instantly went viral. When other students get into Harvard or Yale University, their parents are overjoyed. But my mother not only doesn't take pride in me, she's also trying every trick in the book to smear my reputation. Netizens have dubbed me the saddest top scorer. My classmates posted photos of me eating steamed buns and drinking cold water on social media, garnering me another wave of sympathy. My mother still wouldn't give up, insisting on reporting me to the education department for cheating on the college entrance exam, with the reason being, I'm Luna's mother. I know what she's up to the moment she lifts her leg. With her terrible grades, there's no way she could have scored 700 points, but the education department and netizens aren't fools. The staff from the education department reviewed the exam hall surveillance multiple times and concluded that I did not cheat. Netizens mocked my mother even more mercilessly. "Do you think the college entrance exam hall is your home, where you can cheat whenever you want, if you have that kind of ability? Why don't you just take the exam honestly and get into Harvard or Yale University? If cheating could get you a score of 700, should we believe her or believe that I am a queen?" "Auntie, don't be too hard on your daughter. Her life is sure to be more wonderful than yours." My mother was so furious that she rushed to the rooftop that very night, shouting at me, "Luna, if you dare to apply to Harvard or Yale University, I'll jump off this building." This scene has finally arrived. Compared to the panic of my previous life, all I want to do in this one is laugh out loud. Stripped of all the warm pretenses, my mother has only one thought: I don't deserve such a good life. My brother must get into a prestigious university and have a smooth future. But I am to abandon my dreams, find a stable and ordinary job, and marry an average man. I didn't understand my mother's intentions before, why she went to such lengths to keep me by her side. It wasn't until I accidentally overheard my mother talking with someone else. She said, "I've worked hard for half my life, and it's time for me to enjoy some peace and comfort. Charles will graduate from university next year. By then, he'll take the exam to become a civil servant in a major city. Marry the only daughter of a leader, and the money they earn as a couple, wouldn't half of it naturally come to me? In the future, when Charles becomes an official, I'll be the mother of a leader, just in time. Luna will take the college entrance exam next year. I plan to have her apply for a medical program that guarantees job placement. That way, if I ever have a headache or a cold, Luna can treat me, and I can save on nursing fees. I can't trust outsiders. My own daughter is more reliable." Someone asked, "What if Charles and Luna don't listen to you?" My mother's face turned icy. "If they don't listen, I'll die right in front of them. I've raised them for half my life, never once scolding or hitting them. They must take good care of me. If they think they can fly away, I'll drag them back by force." Thoughts returned to the present, and my mother was wildly gesticulating on the rooftop. "Luna, did you hear me? Between Harvard, Yale University, and your mother, you can only choose one." Surrounded by onlookers, I fell to my knees with a thud, my cries heart-wrenching. "Mom, please don't force me. I really don't know what to do." My mother looked down at me from above. "Then you should listen to me and obediently apply for the medical school with guaranteed job placement. If it weren't for the fact that you're my daughter, I wouldn't even give you this advice. The job market is tough right now. Even if you get into Harvard or Yale University, you might not find a job. It's better to have a guaranteed placement after graduation. For years from now, you'll thank me." The viewers in the live stream couldn't hold back anymore, and they started sending messages in the chat. A 700-point score for top universities can't hide the decline, while a 400-point score for a medical college showcases true brilliance. If I didn't know this mother's character, I would have believed it. she never wanted her child to have it easy. Explain in detail. Who doesn't know that Luna's mother doesn't feed her, brings random men home for the night, and then kicks her daughter out of the house? Luna also has an older brother who left home 4 years ago, also driven away by their mother. I also knew her, more than a decade ago. We taught at the same elementary school. She used to bully younger teachers by flaunting her seniority, but then she had an affair with a married man, which became the talk of the office. In the end, she just quit her job. In no time, my mother's past misdeeds were all over the internet. All those years of careful planning paid off, finally exposing her true nature. Unaware that she had already become the object of public disdain in such a short time, my mother continued to spout her arrogant words. Is a promising future more important, or is a blood-sucking mother more important? Isn't that obvious? If you choose the blood-sucking mother, don't come crying later saying you regret it. Our lives as netizens matter too. Public opinion overwhelmingly sided with me. With tears in my eyes, I remained silent about changing my aspirations. Mom, please come down. I promise to be obedient from now on. My mother, not unless you change your major. Mom, don't jump off the building. If you die, I won't be able to live either. My mother, can't you understand human speech? I'm telling you to change your major. The police and ambulance crews were all present, ready to prevent my mother from doing something foolish in her emotional state, but despite all the commotion lasting until the middle of the night, she never jumped from the building. Embarrassed and furious, she cursed me for being cold-blooded and heartless, saying she should have strangled me at birth. I remained silent, watching helplessly as the hour hand pointed to midnight. The deadline for submitting college applications had passed. My choice remained the archaeology department at Harvard and Yale University. This time, I finally took control of my own destiny. I heard news about my mother again 10 years later. I had just finished an academic exchange and flew back to the country after more than 10 hours on a plane, only to receive a court summons at home. It turned out that my mother was suing me for not supporting my parents, demanding that I transfer 10,000 yuan to her every month for living expenses. I asked my brother, and he had also received a summons, with the same demand for 10,000 yuan in support. My mom really had the nerve to think that, back then, she raised both of us with 3,000 yuan, and now she's asking us for 20,000. But where in the world is there a business that guarantees profits without risk? Clearly, my brother and I, now awakened, would leave my mom with nothing. 10 years had passed, and my mother had aged considerably. But her eyes remained cold and unyielding. Luna, I hear you've gone straight from a master's to a PhD and become an associate professor, so you must be quite wealthy now, right? Hand over my living expenses right away, or I'll go make a scene at your school. You wouldn't want your students to find out what a heartless wretch you are, would you? I smiled warmly and moved closer, my tone affectionate. Mom, don't worry, you've done so much for me, and I will certainly repay your kindness with filial devotion. Her expression softened considerably, and with a condescending air, she took a seat in my newly purchased car. It wasn't until the car came to a stop in front of the mental hospital that my mother suddenly woke up, clinging tightly to the car door, refusing to get out. You beast, where have you brought me? I ignored her, only wiping away tears as I greeted the doctor who came to welcome us. I never expected my mother's mental illness to be this severe. She never paid attention to her health, and for over a decade, she never saw a doctor. It wasn't until today that I realized how seriously ill my mother is. Once, she was so gentle, but now, I choked out, continuing to sob. Could my mother have bipolar disorder or schizophrenia? Doctor, please, you must cure my mother. I am willing to pay any price. Looking at the eerie mental hospital in front of her, what more could my mother not understand? Held by 2 nurses, she kicked violently at the air. I don't have a mental illness. Don't listen to this wretch's nonsense. She's trying to kill me. I'm calling the police. You have no right to restrict my freedom. I want to see the police. I want to see the reporters. I cried uncontrollably, tears streaming down. Mom, take good care of your health, and when you're better, I'll take you home. My brother and I will be waiting for you at home. The doctor frowned as he watched my mother in a hysterical state, scribbling a few lines on the diagnosis report. Then he handed me a tissue, soothingly saying, "We will certainly do our best to cure your mother's mental illness. Please rest assured, Professor Dong, really, thank you so much. It must be a complete cure. Money is not an issue. Any special medications or advanced technologies can be used on my mother. Notify me as soon as she is cured." I sincerely thanked the doctor, shaking his hand. I'm not sick. I'm not sick. Luna, you will suffer for this." My mother fell apart, her struggles growing weaker. you can never wake someone who is pretending to be asleep, just as you can never cure someone who isn't mentally ill. When she realized that the rest of her life would be imprisoned in this cage, I wonder if she could feel the despair that once enveloped me and my brother. Mom, be a good girl and listen, okay? Otherwise, I'll be heartbroken to death. If I die, who else will earn money for you to spend? I gently wiped the sweat from her forehead. My mother shuddered with fear, watching helplessly as the nurses led her into the facility. No, Luna, I was wrong. I didn't mean to hurt you. And Charles, let him see me. I have something to say to both of you. The iron bars slammed shut with a loud clang. My mother's teary eyes pleaded with me through the gap. I smiled and waved goodbye to her, just like every morning of childhood. After hearing the first story, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Sister-in-law had surgery and was hospitalized. Her 8-year-old daughter, Alice, had no one to take care of her. Let me help take care of her for a few days. Thinking of how well-behaved and sensible the little girl was, I was about to nod, when suddenly, do not agree, Alice is a wicked person. She will deliberately push you, who are 8 months pregnant, and take away your phone so you can't call for help, causing you to die along with your unborn child. I couldn't help but be stunned as the barrage of comments continued to appear. She even lied without batting an eye afterward, claiming she was asleep in the bedroom and had no idea you fell in the kitchen. Your husband was so heartbroken and mentally unstable that he died in a car accident, and your in-laws gave all your property to your husband's elder sister's family. Don't agree to it. This is the beginning of your family's nightmare. I looked at Alice in panic, who was quietly munching on snacks beside me. Alice immediately looked up and gave me an innocent, guileless smile. I felt a chill run down my spine instantly, seeing that I didn't respond for a long time. My sister-in-law spoke again. Sister-in-law, you help me take care of her for a few days. I'll be discharged from the hospital in at most half a month. I've already packed Alice's things and put them in your brother-in-law's trunk. Just take them with you when you go back. I suppressed the shock in my heart and apologized. Big sister, I'm in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and I'm feeling more and more uncomfortable lately. I can't take care of Alice. Maybe we should ask Mom to take care of her for a while instead. Whether the bullet screen was real or not, my attitude was to believe it if there was even a hint of truth to it. Her smile stiffened for 2 seconds before returning to normal. Sister-in-law, Mom has so many livestock to take care of, she definitely can't leave. Could you please take care of Alice for a few days? I'll pick her up as soon as I'm discharged from the hospital. She said this while looking at my husband, Frank, and asked with a suggestive gaze, Brother, what do you think? Frank seemed to be lost in thought, only snapping back to attention when his sister called his name. He shook his head repeatedly. No, Susan needs someone to take care of her recently, so she definitely can't take care of Alice. If our mom can't do it, let's ask sister's mother-in-law to come. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If he knew I was refusing and still made the decision for me to take on this responsibility, even if the baby was about to be born, I would divorce him. Others may not stand by me, but he absolutely cannot. Big sister-in-law's face turned completely dark. Brother-in-law Tom, who had the appearance of an honest man, spoke up. Brother, it's not that I don't want to call my mom, but my dad recently broke his leg and is still lying in bed. My mom really can't make it, and I have to go to work, so this matter can only be left to my sister-in-law. You don't need to worry about your younger siblings. Alice isn't a toddler anymore. She can take care of herself, has food to eat, and someone to wash her clothes. She can even help you with work. There's no need to fuss over her too much. As he spoke, he quickly nudged Alice. Alice, don't just stand there. Go thank your aunt. Alice immediately stood up and rushed over to me. Thank you, Auntie. I was shocked and quickly stepped back. Frank quickly stepped forward and stood in front of me just in time. Alice slammed into him with a loud thud, causing even the sturdy man to stagger. I dare not imagine what terrible consequences it would have if she were to crash into my stomach. My sister-in-law pretended to scold her. Alice, your auntie has a baby in her belly. You can't jump at her so hard. Alice looked up, raising her innocent little face, and apologized. Uncle, I'm sorry. I always feel that Alice did it on purpose. She's 8 years old. She wouldn't be unaware of the serious harm such a forceful impact could cause to a pregnant woman's belly. She must have done it on purpose. Her eyes were terrifying when she rushed over just now, not something a child her age should have. This little girl is too terrifying. At such a young age, she's already so cunning and vicious. She's going to be unstoppable when she grows up. That's why they say she's a natural-born villain, isn't it? Did anyone else notice that the plot seems to have changed? After the adaptation, I always felt that the female lead and her son died so unjustly. Frank coldly pushed Alice away. Sister, brother-in-law, I really can't help with this. Susan gets tired easily, and with the hot weather, she can't stay in the kitchen. Recently, I've been the one cooking. It's inconvenient for Mom to come to the city, so just send Alice back to the countryside. You can pick her up again when summer vacation is over. I still need to accompany Susan for her prenatal checkup, so I won't waste any more time. At this point, even my usually amiable brother-in-law turns sullen, let alone my already domineering elder sister-in-law. What do you mean, Frank? Just what it says. Anyway, we can't help with this. So you figure it out yourselves. Frank stopped wasting words and led me out of the ward. My sister-in-law was so angry she blurted out, Frank, you better not call me sister ever again. Frank's footsteps paused slightly, then continued toward the exit. Behind him came Alice's voice, full of sadness. Mom, do uncle and aunt not like me? The eldest sister-in-law was furious. If they don't like you, fine, we don't care. Brother-in-law sneered. Sometimes, relatives are not as good as outsiders. The whole family of the eldest sister-in-law are real characters. The mother is overbearing and domineering, the father hides a knife behind his smile, and the daughter is vicious and cunning. Anyway, it's been adapted. Hopefully they don't kill off the male and female leads. Yeah, the male and female leads clearly love each other so much, but everything was ruined by Alice, this little devil. It's such a pity. I tensed up, instinctively gripping Frank's hand tightly. Frank turned his head to look at me, his gaze unusually resolute. Don't worry, honey, I will definitely protect you and our baby. I looked at him in surprise. You saw it too? Frank nodded. Honey, look, even the heavens are giving us a golden advantage. We're definitely going to win. I nodded vigorously. Yes, you're absolutely right. The little one in my belly gave me a gentle kick, as if agreeing with us. I didn't check, so we went straight home. Today is Monday. And Frank only took a half-day leave, returning to work at the company after lunch. In the summer heat, I usually stay at home to enjoy the air conditioning during the day. At around 4 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Since I've been buying a lot of things online recently, I assumed it was the deliveryman and got up to head toward the living room door. I sometimes don't open the door immediately, so I tell the delivery guy to just knock or ring the doorbell and leave the package outside. I peeked through the peephole and seeing no one, I didn't suspect anything. Just as I was about to open the door, the comments popped up again. Don't open the door, Alice and Tom are outside, hiding. If you open the door, your life will be in grave danger. This family is so annoying. Why can't they just be squashed? I quickly dropped my hands and stood still by the door, not daring to move. After waiting for about 3 or 4 minutes, seeing no movement outside, I gently approached the peephole to look out. Seeing no one outside, I thought they had given up and left, and was about to breathe a sigh of relief when a bloodshot eye suddenly appeared on the other side of the peephole. I was so startled that I almost screamed, but luckily I managed to cover my mouth in time. Before I could catch my breath, the urgent knocking started again. The sound grew louder and more frequent, eventually turning into frantic pounding, leaning against the shoe cabinet. I was so nervous that I didn't even dare to breathe heavily. The violent knocking lasted for about 2 minutes before it finally stopped, but my heart was still not fully at ease when the security door suddenly began to shake violently again. I dared not move recklessly. After this commotion lasted for about a minute, silence fell outside the door once more. The repeated scares had my nerves on edge, and my stomach began to tighten in waves. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. Then tiptoed back to the living room and sat down on the sofa to relax. I took out my phone and told Frank what had just happened. Frank said he would be home right away, and if they didn't leave, we should call the police. Speaking of calling the police, it dawned on me that I had probably been too scared to think straight. I held my phone and listened for a while, noticing that there seemed to be no more commotion outside, so I didn't call the police. I patiently waited for Frank to return. Before Frank arrived home, the family group chat exploded with activity. My sister-in-law sent a voice message questioning me. Sister-in-law, why didn't you open the door for Alice? She waited outside for an hour. In the background, the faint sound of Alice's heartbroken and wronged sobs could be heard. The relatives and friends in the group immediately became active, either comforting the eldest sister-in-law or at mentioning me to demand an explanation. Auntie, why didn't Frank's wife let Alice into the house? Uncle, adults having conflicts is an adult matter. There's no need to take it out on innocent children. Cousin, exactly. a little girl waiting outside for an hour and being denied entry. How much harm could that do to her heart? Elder cousin, Alice, come visit your uncle whenever you want. The door at my house is always open for you. It's a fact that Alice and Tom were denied entry. There's nothing to explain. And I don't intend to explain or apologize. Frank came out and it mentioned everyone. My wife's sleep quality has been poor recently, and she wears earplugs when she sleeps. Isn't it normal that she didn't hear anything? Oh, by the way, since my sister-in-law is hospitalized and Alice has no one to take care of her, does anyone have time to look after her for a few days? The people who were just full of righteous indignation disappeared simultaneously, and instead, a cousin came out and it mentioned the eldest sister-in-law. I have time, why don't you send the child to me, and I'll help take care of her for a few days. The eldest sister-in-law replied, Sister Ting, Alice has dance classes, and your place is too far. Why don't you bring Winnie to stay at my house? Cousin, that might not work. My daughter Winnie also has art class, so we can't make it. Cousin, then it mentioned Frank. Isn't your sister close to your place, since your wife isn't working? Why not ask her to help out? Frank, my wife is about to give birth, and she doesn't have the energy to take care of a child. Besides, dance class isn't every day. Can't you just drive them there? Aunt's family and cousin's family live on opposite ends, and it takes about 2 hours to drive between them. Cousin, it's too far. I can't make it in time. Frank, then there's nothing I can do. The group chat fell completely silent, to be honest. If it weren't for Frank himself being so level-headed, I wouldn't be able to tolerate any of his relatives. Just as I exited the group chat, Frank sent me a message. Honey, I'm opening the door. Don't be scared. Me, if he hadn't reminded me and just suddenly opened the door to greet me, it definitely would have startled me. My mother-in-law had made it clear to both me and Frank a long time ago that she wouldn't help us take care of the child. My parents only care about my eldest brother's family. They won't bother with my well-being, so we decided to hire a nanny for 3 months after the baby is born. Frank suggested finding a nanny in advance, someone who could take care of me and also keep an eye on my sister-in-law's family. Alice is just a child, and right now, we don't have any evidence to prove her malice. Besides hiding to avoid risks, there was simply no way to deal with her. Frank bought surveillance cameras, planning to install them outside the door and in the living room, just in case. Around 8 in the evening, my mother-in-law called me. Even a fool could guess what she was about to say. I didn't want to answer, so I handed the phone to Frank. Mom, what's up? Where's my daughter-in-law? I'm in the shower. Just tell me if there's anything. Nothing much, just asking how she's been lately. I didn't believe it for a second. Sure enough, after a few pleasantries between my mother-in-law and Frank, she brought up the topic of Alice. Son, anyway, your daughter-in-law is idle at home. Let her help your sister take care of Alice for a few days. After she gives birth, your sister can also help her for a few days. Your eldest sister has experience, and with her helping out, you'll be much more relaxed. I glared angrily at Frank. Help me take care of the child, and bring that little devil Alice over. Frank looked at me with a forced smile. Mom, Susan is heavily pregnant and can barely take care of herself, let alone a child. Can you put your work aside for a few days and help big sister take care of the baby for a while? My mother-in-law grew angry. There are pigs and chickens at home, and your father doesn't know how to handle them. How can I leave? Alice is your niece, not a stranger. What's the big deal about her helping out? Besides, Alice is obedient and sensible. She can just cook and do the laundry. There's no need for her to worry about anything else. There's no need to be so calculating within a family. If she's not sensible, that's one thing, but why are you being so unreasonable too? The more I listened, the darker my face became. Frank's expression wasn't good either. Mom, anyway, we can't help with this matter. If you're willing to help take care of things, then help. If not, then don't. Susan is done washing up. I'm hanging up. You. Frank hung up the phone and immediately came over to hug me and act spoiled. Honey, don't be mad, okay? Let's live our own life. Don't pay attention to what they say. Meeting his eyes filled with guilt, I couldn't bring myself to say anything accusatory. Before we started dating, Frank had already told me that his parents favored his older sister more and couldn't help him in any way. I had chosen to be with him because of who he was. I had said that as long as he stood by me and thought wholeheartedly about our little family, that would be enough. Whether during the 3 years of our courtship or the 2 years of our marriage, he truly lived up to these 2 principles. As long as you're clear-headed, I won't be angry. Frank grinned, baring his teeth, and gave me a tight hug, planting a big kiss on me. Thank you, wife, you're the best. After I got pregnant, I became extremely sensitive to heat and pushed him away with disgust. I said, "Are you sure you're really their biological child?" To be honest, I've seen a lot of favoritism towards boys, but favoritism towards girls over boys is something I haven't come across. When my sister-in-law's family bought a house and a car, my in-laws contributed financially, but when it came to Frank buying a house and a car, my in-laws suddenly found themselves strapped for cash, unable to spare a single cent. Although Frank's income is indeed higher than that of his brother-in-law, but the way my in-laws completely disregard their son's well-being still baffles me. Frank couldn't help but laugh. I used to suspect that I wasn't their biological child, but after asking many people, I confirmed that I am indeed my mother's son, and I resemble my father when he was young. I had nothing to say. Frank indeed resembled his father, looking unmistakably like a biological son. Frank sighed and continued. My maternal grandparents were extremely patriarchal. My mother endured a lot of hardship during her childhood. She often said she wouldn't let my sister suffer the same way, perhaps going a bit overboard in the process. I don't care how much your mother dotes on your sister, just don't bring it to my doorstep. I'm usually the type to endure things, but when I can't take it anymore, I erupt like a volcano. I wouldn't care if the other person was his sister, his mother, or even his aunts and uncles. Frank nodded solemnly. Don't worry, I won't let anyone mess with my wife. After Frank hung up the phone with his mother, his phone didn't stop ringing. His aunt, uncle, uncle-in-law, and aunt-in-law all called one after another to criticize and lecture him. Frank initially answered, but when he saw that the call was from a relative, he simply hung up. The next day, Frank told me that his mother had still gone to help take care of her sister's child. I remembered when my mother-in-law first found out I was pregnant. Her initial reaction wasn't one of joy, but rather a look of distress as she said she was too old to take care of a young child. I hadn't actually expected her to help me with childcare, but hearing her say that still left me feeling deeply hurt. Sometimes I think, if my in-laws didn't care at all about Frank, it would be easier. Like how it is with my parents and me, at most, we could just cut ties and not see each other. But my in-laws aren't completely indifferent to Frank. It's just that he's the back of their hand, while his sister is the palm. This makes things very tricky. The nanny we arranged can only start in a week. On the third day, shortly after Frank left, the doorbell rang. I checked the surveillance camera and was shocked to see my mother-in-law with Alice waiting outside. My scalp tingled instantly. Just as I was about to pretend I wasn't home, the barrage of comments appeared. Tom is so despicable, actually inciting his mother-in-law to bring her daughter to cause trouble for the female lead when Frank is not at home. Alice even brought a hidden camera. If the female lead doesn't let her mother-in-law and daughter in, he'll post the video online. The male lead works at a state-owned enterprise. If this escalates, he's definitely going to get fired. I was both furious and chilled to the bone. The economic situation has been tough in recent years. Jobs are hard to come by, and we have mortgages, car loans, and a four-legged money pit on the way. If Frank loses his job, it would be a huge problem. This Tom is truly a vicious dog that bites without barking. The doorbell rang insistently, like a harbinger of doom. I sent a message to Frank, then took a deep breath, walked over, and opened the door, forcing a warm smile. "Mom, what brings you here? Come in and sit down." "Alice, come in too." My mother-in-law seemed to be in a good mood, bending down to carry in a case of beer. "I brought some local eggs from home, 1 box for your eldest sister, and 1 for you all." Hearing this made my head ache. My mother-in-law always did this, showing care for her precious daughter while conveniently showing some care for Frank, her son. It left one feeling like a fishbone stuck in the throat. "Thank you, Mom. You all take a seat first. I'll go pour some water." I turned and went to the kitchen. Frank might be busy. He hasn't replied to my message. I first brought out 2 cups of water, then took out some fruit from the mini fridge to wash. As I was deeply immersed in washing, Alice's voice suddenly came from behind me. "Auntie." I was startled and turned around to see Alice standing at the kitchen door. I quickly adjusted my expression. "Is something the matter, Alice?" Alice asked me pitifully. "Auntie, don't you like me?" I sneered inwardly. This girl really is something else, so young yet already knows how to manipulate adults. "Auntie likes you. Why do you ask?" Suddenly, tears welled up in Alice's eyes as she said, "Then why didn't Auntie open the door for me last time? I waited outside for a long time." I apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, Alice. Last time, Auntie had earplugs on and was sleeping in the bedroom. I didn't hear the doorbell. Next time you come, call Auntie in advance, and I won't sleep and will wait for you." "Thank you, Auntie." Alice rushed over to hug me. I turned around, picked up the fruit platter, and handed it to her, saying loudly, "Alice, take the fruit to Grandma." Alice stopped in her tracks, reluctantly replying, "Oh." I brought out another plate of snacks. After exchanging a few polite words, my mother-in-law suddenly said, "I heard from Frank that you're pregnant and it's inconvenient for you to do things. Since I'm already taking care of Alice, I might as well bring her to live with you and take care of both you and Alice together." I couldn't help but sneer coldly in my heart. I'm not sure if she genuinely wants to take care of me or if she's using the excuse of looking after me to foist Alice on me. "Mom, it's okay, you just take care of Alice. I've hired a postpartum nanny." My mother-in-law's face darkened for a moment. "Are you saying you think Mom is clumsy and can't take good care of you?" I'm speechless. If I ask her to take care of things, she says she's too old. If I don't ask her, she feels I'm dismissing her. "Mom, didn't you say before that you're too old and your body can't handle it?" Her mother-in-law's expression stiffened for a moment before she forced a smile again. "You and Alice aren't babies, it's not that hard. But since you're hiring a postpartum helper, it's perfect to have her take care of Alice too. Your dad can't handle things at home, so I need to go back to the countryside soon." I let my unhappiness show on my face. "The auntie from the previous family hasn't finished yet, she can only come in a week." "It's fine, I'll bring the maternity nanny along." I didn't respond, planning to leave the matter to Frank, although my mother-in-law said she would take care of me. She remained seated without moving. Around noon, she asked Alice, "Alice, are you hungry? If you are, ask your auntie to cook for you." I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Alice nodded quickly, looking at me and said, "Auntie, I'm so hungry. When are we eating?" I remained calm and said, "Your uncle will be back soon. We'll eat when he gets back and cooks for you." My mother-in-law's face darkened again. "Aren't you going to cook?" He just walked in the door. "Susan can't stand the smell of cooking oil, and if she stands too long, her stomach and legs hurt. If I don't cook, who will?" His mother was momentarily speechless. Today, Frank performed poorly. The dishes were either burnt or too salty, though he seemed to enjoy them himself. Alice took a bite and went to find snacks. The mother-in-law ate a bite here and there. I kept shoveling plain white rice into my mouth. After a while, the mother-in-law suddenly spoke up, "Son, Susan said you hired a postpartum nanny. I'll stay here with Alice for now and take care of Susan. Once the nanny arrives, I'll go back to my hometown. That way, the nanny can also look after Alice." Frank replied without looking up, "Do as you please." His mother quickly agreed. "All right then, it's settled." After dinner, Frank threw his chopsticks onto the table and said nonchalantly, "Mom, you'll wash the pots and dishes later. Then wash the clothes and hang them up. Also, mop the floor. Oh. And if you're not leaving, make dinner too. Just 4 dishes and 1 soup will do." With every word Frank spoke, his mother's face darkened further. Frank pretended not to notice and helped me toward the bedroom. "Honey, you didn't sleep well last night. Since Mom's here to do the work, go get some rest. Just wake up for dinner tonight. Tell Mom what you want to eat, and she'll make it for you." "All right then." I entered the house and locked the door behind me. Half an hour later, Frank called from outside the door, "Honey, are you asleep?" I wasn't asleep and quickly got up to open the door. Frank said happily, "Mom took Alice away." I was also delighted. "Is Mom angry?" Frank didn't care at all. "Who cares about her? She wants to dump Alice on us and then go back to her hometown. There's no such good thing. I'm going to work. Don't open the door for anyone this afternoon. I'll just say you're wearing earplugs and sleeping, okay?" There was nothing sensational in the footage of Alice, so Tom did not post it online. The mother-in-law stayed behind to take care of Alice. A week later, the maternity nanny arrived. I reminded her not to open the door for anyone without my permission. On the second day the nanny arrived, my mother-in-law called Frank to ask if the nanny had come yet, and if so, to send Alice over. Frank told her that taking care of an extra person would cost more, and asked his older sister to transfer the money to him first. My mother-in-law scolded Frank harshly and didn't mention sending Alice over again. Half a month later, my sister-in-law was discharged from the hospital, but my mother-in-law still didn't return to her hometown. Since my sister-in-law's incision hadn't fully healed, not only did Alice need to be taken care of, but even my sister-in-law required someone to look after her. The day after my sister-in-law was discharged, my mother-in-law called Frank and asked us to bring gifts to visit her at home. Frank bought some fruits and milk and went over. That day, my sister-in-law was being sarcastic in the family group chat, accusing me of putting on airs. Frank defended me in the group, he said he didn't let me go because he was worried she would pass her illness to me. My sister-in-law retorted that she didn't have a contagious disease. Frank asked her again, if I go see her and something happens to me or the child, will you take responsibility? She immediately fell silent. Her mother-in-law continued to take care of her sister-in-law for another half-month, only returning to her hometown when Alice started school. During this period, almost every day relatives called Frank, telling him he was being unreasonable. Frank didn't give face to anyone. No matter who it was, he would give them a piece of his mind. He had almost offended all the relatives. If he didn't care, I naturally cared even less. A month later, I gave birth to a boy. The in-laws were quite happy, especially my father-in-law, whose words hinted at the continuation of the family line. You'd think they like daughters, but they only like the daughters they give birth to, and the daughters those daughters give birth to. If I were to have a daughter, they might not like her either. My father-in-law asked us to take Nan back to our hometown to hold a full moon feast. Frank refused. Before we knew it, the year was coming to an end. That evening when Frank was on break, he brought Nan and me back to our hometown. It wasn't until Nan's 100th day that we found out that my in-laws had actually arranged a celebration for her, and the guests had all been invited. Although Frank and I were unhappy about it, we had no choice but to endure. On the day of the 100th day celebration, dozens of people showed up. A distant cousin's sister-in-law, Mia, who had just become pregnant, came to me to ask about precautions during pregnancy and after childbirth. I patiently explained it to her. Finally, she whispered to me, "Sister-in-law, keep a close eye on Nancy, don't let outsiders hold her or touch her. Some people have very bad intentions." We've been paying attention to all of that, but I'm still grateful to her. She was the only one who told me about this. Frank and I stayed by Nancy's side without leaving an inch, and Frank also made it clear that no one else was allowed to hold Nancy. Yet, despite this, someone still insisted on coming over to hold Nancy. This person was my mother-in-law's sister-in-law, who is also Frank's aunt. I wouldn't let her hold her, so she leaned in to kiss her instead. Luckily, I reacted quickly and dodged with Nancy in my arms. Frank immediately turned grim. "Auntie, you can't kiss the child, and you have herpes on your mouth. It would be troublesome if it spreads to the child." Frank's auntie chuckled. "I'm just an uneducated old lady. How would I know about this herpes you're talking about that can spread?" Mia sneered and said, "Auntie, if you say you didn't know it was contagious, why don't you hold your third daughter every day and kiss her?" Auntie Frank was stunned, and the atmosphere became extremely awkward. The mother-in-law stepped in to smooth things over. "Just explain it clearly, don't keep pushing it. We old country women haven't been to school, we don't understand your stuff about contagious or not." Frank said to me, Nan is sleepy. Take Nan back to the room to sleep." "Okay." I carried Nancy back to the room to sleep, and after coaxing her to sleep, I went to the bathroom. When I returned to the room, I saw Alice standing by the bed, her hand about to fall on Nancy's head. I didn't have time to think, so I rushed over and pushed Alice away. Alice staggered 2 steps to the side, her voice full of grievance. "Auntie, I just wanted to touch the baby," I said coldly. "You can't touch the baby's head." Alice's mouth pouted, and she ran out of the room in tears. I wanted to send a message to Frank, but suddenly remembered that his phone was charging in the room. About 3 minutes later, my sister-in-law stormed in with Alice, who was crying, ready to confront me. "What do you mean by this, Susan? You're always finding fault with my daughter. Is your son made of gold? Can't even touch him." With my sister-in-law causing such a commotion, many people gathered at the door to watch the spectacle. I was about to speak when Mia chimed in. "Sister Wendy, since you've raised a child yourself, you should know that you can't just touch a child's head if their fontanelle hasn't fully developed." It's natural for sister-in-law to be worried when Alice touched Nancy's head. Sister-in-law glared at Mia. "You're right, you can't touch too hard, but what's wrong with a gentle touch?" Mia continued. "Children don't know how to control their strength. How do you know her gentle is really gentle?" Sister-in-law retorted confidently. "My daughter isn't stupid. How could she not know how to be gentle?" Mia chuckled. "She knows the seriousness of the situation. Yet she keeps pushing the little sister and brother down." Her sister-in-law was momentarily stumped. "That was an accident," Mia retorted. "Isn't an accident just a sign of not knowing how to hold back?" Her sister-in-law was completely at a loss for words. She muttered, "Curiosity killed the cat," and then dragged the heartbroken Alice away. As Alice turned around, she gave Mia a deep look. That gaze was filled with a venomous resentment far beyond her years. It sent chills down my spine. After the crowd dispersed, I pulled Mia into the room and whispered to her, "Mia, be careful around Alice. Mia wasn't particularly surprised, speaking softly. "Sister-in-law, has Alice done anything bad before?" I pondered and said, "When I was pregnant with Nancy, she tried to bump into my stomach several times." Mia's mouth gaped in horror. "I always thought Alice was a bit sinister. I thought it was just my prejudice against her, but I didn't expect she really is." Shoo. I made a shushing gesture. "Anyway, try to stay as far away from her as possible." Mia nodded repeatedly. Mia stayed with me for a while, but then her husband called her to come downstairs for dinner, so she left. Not long after Mia left, Frank came in with the food. "Did Alice cause trouble again?" I recounted what had just happened. Frank clenched his teeth and said, "We'll leave first thing tomorrow morning." "All right. Keep an eye on Alice downstairs. I think she's holding a grudge against Mia. Tell my cousin not to just brag all the time and protect his wife more." I understand." Less than half an hour after Frank left, things got lively downstairs. Alice led a group of kids in a wild chase, deliberately steering them toward Mia. If it weren't for Mia's quick thinking and her husband's timely push that sent the child crashing into them flying off, today would have been a huge mess. Mia, being straightforward, immediately shouted, specifically calling out Alice. Alice burst into tears on the spot. The older sister-in-law defended Alice, engaging in a heated argument with Mia. Alice was clever. While everyone else rushed forward, she lagged behind, without any evidence, and being a seemingly cute and well-behaved child, her heartbroken sobs only made her appear even more innocent and pitiful. The crowd believed that Mia was being unreasonable and began to criticize her. I couldn't stand it any longer, so I carried Nancy over to Frank. "I have something to say. Do you have any objections?" Frank nodded with a stern face. "Say what you want. We can just stop interacting in the future." I stepped forward, carrying Nancy, and stood face to face with my sister-in-law, whose eyes were also red with tears. "Big sister." My sister-in-law immediately turned to look at me, glaring with fury. "Speak if you have something to say, then I'll speak the truth." The noisy environment gradually quieted down. I took a deep breath and spoke firmly. "I don't know if your daughter deliberately led the children to bump into Mia, but I do know that when I was pregnant, your daughter always deliberately bumped into me. That time in the hospital, if Frank hadn't acted quickly to block her, I might have been done for. That's why I don't want to take care of her, and I don't allow her to touch my son." My sister-in-law froze for a moment, then lunged at me, flailing her arms. "You little bitch, how dare you slander my daughter with your lies?" Frank stepped forward to block her. Mia started shouting at the top of her lungs, "Some people are just born bad. Which of the kids she played with today hasn't been bullied by her, either openly or secretly? Don't say it's not intentional. Once or twice might be unintentional, but every single time, is that still unintentional? Alice bullied several kids today." The other parents were actually quite uncomfortable, but due to family and friendship ties, they didn't say anything. Now that Mia brought it up, these parents all felt that Alice seemed to be doing it on purpose. Exchanging glances with each other, many people's gazes toward Alice shifted. Suddenly, Alice burst into loud sobs. Since my sister-in-law couldn't hit me, she embraced Alice and wailed together with her. "She's just a little girl, 7 or 8 years old. Is it really necessary to bully her like this?" Tom walked over with a dark expression, holding his wife and daughter in silence. His father-in-law was so angry that he stomped his feet, while his mother-in-law, furious, slapped Frank across the face. "You little scoundrel, can't you tell who shares your surname? You're helping outsiders bully your own sister." Her implication was clear. I was the outsider, while her daughter, Frank's elder sister, was his true family. Frank shouldn't have stopped his sister-in-law from hitting me. Frank looked at his mother-in-law with utter disappointment, his eyes devoid of any warmth. "Mom, if that's how you see it, then you're also an outsider in the family." His mother-in-law was stunned. Others also started chiming in, their voices overlapping. In an instant, everything descended into chaos. I had already packed my luggage. Frank first helped Nan and me into the car, then went back to move the luggage. As Frank prepared to leave, his mother stood in front of the car. "If you dare to leave today, don't ever acknowledge me as your mother." Frank knelt on the ground, his knees bent. "Mom, the legal relationship between mother and son can't be severed, but I won't be coming back. I'll give each of you, you and Dad, 1,000 yuan every month. If you think that's not enough, take me to court. Whatever the court decides, I'll pay you." His mother trembled all over as she pointed at Frank. "If you dare to run over your own mother, then go ahead and leave." Mia elbowed her cousin Frank, not sure what she said. Frank immediately rushed out, pulling the old lady back by force. "Auntie, come in and have a drink of water." don't get yourself worked up." Frank got into the car and sped away. On the road, Frank's phone was bombarded with calls. He simply handed his phone to me and asked me to block all their relatives. The next day, his aunt called from an unfamiliar number, saying that his mother-in-law was so angry that she fell ill. Frank transferred 2,000 yuan to his aunt, asking her to take his mother-in-law to see a doctor. If there was any shortfall, she could send him the invoices, and he would cover the rest. Frank was worried they might find where we lived, so he hastily rented a house in another neighborhood and listed our place online for sale. Frank had bought the house early, and selling it at market price allowed us to make a small profit. 3 months later, the house was successfully sold. With the money from the sale, we bought another house. Frank completely severed ties with his relatives. Only his in-laws occasionally called to cause trouble. 2 years later, when their hometown was undergoing demolition and relocation, his in-laws not only received an apartment in the county town but also over 300,000 yuan in cash compensation. His mother-in-law used the demolition money to threaten Frank into returning to their hometown to apologize. Frank ignored them. In a fit of anger, the in-laws gave all the money to their eldest daughter. Not long after, their eldest daughter became pregnant with her second child. Frank asked his mother-in-law to warn her eldest daughter to be careful around Alice. Not only was he scolded by his mother-in-law, but his sister-in-law also called to give him a good dressing down. After that, he didn't say anything more. When his sister-in-law was 8 months pregnant, she accidentally fell in the bathroom, and her phone fell into the sewer, leaving her unable to call for help. Coincidentally, Alice had gone downstairs to play. When Alice finally returned home after playing enough, her sister-in-law had already died, along with her unborn child. Less than a year after her sister-in-law's death, Tom brought home his second wife. Alice was sent back to her grandparents' home to live with them. When Tom brought his second wife back to the countryside for the new year, she was accidentally knocked down by Alice. Although he rushed to the hospital immediately, the long delay on the way caused the child to suffocate in the womb and die. His second wife also had to have her uterus removed due to severe bleeding. It is said that during that incident, Tom beat Alice half to death. When the in-laws heard about it, they stormed over to demand an explanation. In the end, Alice was taken home by her in-laws. Not long after, my in-laws called Frank and proposed that we adopt Alice. Frank naturally refused. As a result, my in-laws took Frank and me to court, accusing him of failing to fulfill his duty of support. It was a complete break. After considering all factors, the court ruled that Frank must pay 800 yuan per month in alimony for each parent, which was even less than what Frank had been giving voluntarily. After that, Frank only transferred the money to them monthly, cutting off all contact. About 3 years later, the police suddenly informed us that my in-laws had been murdered, and the suspect was Alice, who was only 16 years old. After killing her grandparents, Alice went to find Tom while no one was aware. She wanted to kill Tom, but was instead killed by him. Tom was sentenced to prison for negligent homicide due to his excessive defense. After that, the bullet screen disappeared. Frank and I knew this meant the end of the story. No matter what, as long as our family of 3 lives well, that's enough. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.